Hi, I'm Adri. This is Imperfectionists, and we're trying to make a perfect sock. A perfect pair of socks, really. I don't think I'm fully centered, but this is just gonna have to be good enough. I am almost done with my Christmas gift knits. Kind of almost done. I have 3 things left. They're all pretty quick and easy, and they're all about halfway done. So that's a good enough time to me that it's time to get started on this project. So I'm gonna pick out some yarn. As I said in my initial overview of the experiment, I'm kind of using these as the base that I'm going to go off of, and so I want to keep the yarn as close as possible to this. This is kind of arbitrary considering all the other things that I'm not going to be 100% perfectly the same as this on, but I've said that that's what I'm going to do, so that's what I'm going to do. I am pretty sure that the yarn, the base that this was dyed on, this is Boston Fiber Company's VSC colorway and the Baker Street Fingering base. I'm pretty sure that the Baker Street Fingering base is just Nomad Snowdrift. Nomad Snowdrift. Nomad Snowdrift is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, specifically recycled nylon, which was the hint that these were snowdrifts because they're recycled nylon. And it's 437 yards per 100 grams. And so that's kind of the basis I'm going to go on for the future socks. I want them to be 4-ply, superwash merino, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. They don't have to be recycled nylon. And 437 yards per 100 grams, which seems specific, but it actually leaves us with a lot of options. So let's go through some of those as we decide what colors we're going to do for this first one. And I think this first one we're going to do the longer heel flap. I think that's the change that's going to make the biggest difference, but I do want to avoid using any of my most favorite yarns for that because it's still just the first step in the process, so it's probably not going to be perfect. So we want to save the good ones for something more perfect. So we're going to start digging through my stash, which is over here. I'm just gonna... So the first candidate is any of these Zesty socks. Don't worry about how many I have. They were buy one, get one. It was like $3 each. So I have all these Zesty socks, and these are, they meet the requirements: 437 yards, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And this is my favorite of the colorways, so I want to save that. I think I want to make the Summerly Comfort Core socks with these, so these are not an option, but I still have 4 other colors. This one's trying to run away. I don't really like these two that much. I think they both come across as more masculine, this one especially, and so I'm going to save this in case I need to make a sock for someone who is a little bit more masculine. This one, I don't know why, I think it just looks more masculine compared to this one, which is more like pinky, and this one's got some more muted oranges, but it is still kind of a pinky orangey base, and that is more feminine. These are all good candidates, so they're in the maybe pile. Next up is Cascade Heritage. This actually meets the same requirements. It feels very different. It's much softer, which is where we get into how much am I actually controlling for, and should I just throw the type of yarn control out the window? But these are the rules I set, so these are the rules I'm following. And so I have a couple of colors of the Cascade Heritage. I've got a yellow, I've got a blue, I have a navy, I have a pink, and I have this white, which I'm pretty sure is the sock quantity's worth. It's got a little bit less than the others, but I think it should be fine. And so I could use any of these. I could stripe these. I could... The thought I had in my head was doing a kind of athletic type stripes where you just do 2 stripes at the top and then one color, maybe with a white and navy, or maybe doing something a little more creative and fun and doing a pink and yellow. I don't know. So that is an option. I also have not quite a socks quantity, but enough to do some accent stuff in the original yarn from this, and so that could play into it as well. I'm also kind of fine with these are just some, but I have a bunch of minis that I used to swatch when I got into dyeing. They're not the exact yardage. They're the Wool to Die For's Platinum sock, and I don't remember exactly what the yardage is, but it's a little different. But otherwise they're the same. They're the 4-ply 75 nylon, 75 25 merino nylon, and so I'm fine with using these as an accent color, even though it's not 100% scientific. Do you see why we're just why am I even bothering with the science? Because I I want to show you what I actually want to do. These guys got tangled while dyeing, and so that's where they're two, but it's 50 grams of the Wool to Dye For. I think it's Sheila's Gold is the base, and I really want to use these with a bare yarn and make a helical sock and use the Summerly Cuff Club Volume 2 November like little dip stitch cuff with. I think that would be so cute. But this is a 2-ply. I think it's I don't remember if it's 75-25 or 80-20, so it could be wrong in multiple ways, and it also I think is a different yardage. So this would be going way outside of the rules, but this is what I want to do. I'm gonna save this because I want to do it and I want it to look really good. So I will do this once I have already figured out the perfect recipe, but this is what I want to do. I really want to be working with some of my hand dyed yarn, but I just don't have any that is the correct base. But as I showed you previously, I do have the base. I got 10 skeins of the Nomad Snowdrift. It was on sale for Black Friday, and so I could dye up some yarns for this. I have one particular idea in mind that I want to do, but I think that maybe for this first one it's going to be the least perfect of all of them. I should probably not go all the way out and do something special and make my own dyed yarn. So all of those options to just come back to the first two. Either one of these three. And I think, because the thing is I don't want to use up my absolute favorite, but I already put my absolute favorite to the side. And I also don't want to do one that I'm not excited about. This one, something about this one just doesn't connect with me. I'm not excited about it. Maybe at some point it will, but right now it's a no. These two I both like, but I think that I like this one more. I think that this is the one that is like calling to me, that if I was gonna do the Zesty sock, I would do it with this one. So this one, and I think I would do, if I do this, I would either want to do the Summerly Cuff Club Volume 2 September cables. These are the August cables. And I think it would be cute to do the September cables in a contrasting color, and then do these ones. I didn't do any contrasting heel or toe. I think that this would be cute with like a contrasting cuff and toe, but keep the heel the same. And if I were to do that, I think a micro skein would maybe be enough. I'm gonna do some holding up on my micro skeins and see if any work well. Okay, I held up all of my different micro skeins to this, and I think the only one that I really like the look of is this. It's kind of a tomatoey red that is, I believe, a mix of pink and yellow. A 1-to-1 mix of Dharma's Brilliant Yellow and Deep Magenta is I think what this is. I'm pretty sure this is the magenta and yellow, and it makes a really pretty tomatoey red. The actual red color, you probably won't be able to tell in this lighting, but creates a much more like cool, almost pink red, and I think the tomatoey red goes better with some of the colors in this. So this is an option, and this is 10 grams, which I might have to do some like measuring with a different sock that I'm working on now. Or another option that I was thinking would be a pop of color where you just kind of cast on and maybe do one row in the accent color and then do the toe. I think that would be enough for that as well. Or it would be enough for the like athletic stripe kind of vibe. So these two colors together in whatever way that this 10 grams would go with this. I also have some Knit Pick Stroll that I could use for accent colors, but I just really want to knit with my hand dyed yarn because I haven't had the chance to yet. So I think that I will figure out how much stuff everything takes and use this. I think that's the plan. Or that's option A for the plan. I also have these two kind of like fun colored micro skeins that I used to kind of like wipe up spills while I was doing my swatching. And so I think it could be fun to pair one of these with one of the Cascade Heritage colors to give it like a little fun accent, like a contrast toe that is variegated. Or like this color combo is kind of calling to me, and I feel like it would be really cute to do stripes of this, like the athletic stripes, but with this variegated yarn. And with this, I think also, I'm trying to imagine what some of the cuffs would look like in variegated yarn. I think that like a regular cuff in the variegated yarn would look cute, but if I wanted to do something more fun, I probably would want to use a tonal. So I think right now these two are calling to me together as an option. Then let's come up with one last option. I think maybe I want to save the pink for a specific project I have in mind, and like theoretically I could just buy more, but that's not the point. So this will be saved for a different project. Do you think this is too crazy? I feel like the like blue and gold is a very fun color combo, like blue primarily with the gold stripes. I like that. Okay, here are the final options. I think that when I see this, as much as I think it might be cute to do stripes in this, I think that I'm more drawn to the idea of doing cuffs out of this and just a plain vanilla sock in the white. That's option one. I'm changing the numbers that the options are, and you can't stop me. Okay, this one, depending on how much yarn stuff takes, either a cabled cuff in this and then with this as the rest of the sock, or a pop of color at the cuff and then a contrast toe. That's option two. Option three is the blue and gold, but I think that I'm least excited about this option right now. I would rather save these for a colorwork pattern or a like more textured pattern. I don't really want like at this moment a plain vanilla sock in solid colors. I do think we're going to end up using both of these color combos throughout this project, but which do I want to do first? I think Zesty Sock is calling to me. I think this is going to be the first of the experiment. But I'm going to set this one aside to be a later one in the experiment. Bad lighting and whispering because it is 1:30 in the morning and it is the same day that I recorded the part choosing what yarn I was going to use, and I should not have started today because I still have Christmas gifts to finish, but I just like as I was thinking through how I wanted to use the contrasting color, I was kind of like divinely inspired. I was thinking about doing the Summer Lee September Cuff Club Volume 2 cables, but they just look kind of like too cute, and the yarn was giving more like cool, there's a better word that I had before, but it's 1:30 in the morning, so I don't have it right now. And so then I was like, okay, so I'll just do the pop of color around the cuff, and that'll be that. But then I thought to myself, what would be cool? Zigzag cables. You can't really tell yet, but I had to figure out how to do it and cast on to see if it would work. I have begun to understand how people get into designing patterns, because for a long time I was just like, how does anyone even have ideas for things? But sometimes the idea just comes to you and it needs to exist. So this is what we're gonna do. And I should go to bed right now, but I'm not. I'm gonna at least finish one repeat of this pattern. And then I'm gonna put it down and not pick it up till I'm done with all my Christmas gifts. Okay, good night. I figured out how to take advantage of all the convenience of recording on my MacBook while using my better iPhone camera, so yay, win for me. I also have very irresponsibly been working on this sock. For an update, it's December 22nd. I have about 10 rows left of this gift knit sock before the toe, and then however many rows the toe is, it's not that much. But more importantly, I have about 200 rows of my Sophie hood still left. Again, it's December 22nd. I have to work tomorrow, and Christmas Eve I will be working and then in the car, and I can't really knit in the car. So the timeline is bad. I should not be working on these, but I am. And I think this is about as long as I want the leg to be. I like a little bit of a shorter sock. So I figured I would update you really quickly before I start the heel flap. because I did the math. I'm using Roxanne Richardson's video about using the heel diagonal to calculate this, but I'm also just kind of using like common sense arithmetic. So my measurement for my heel diagonal is 12.75 inches with 10% negative ease, so 90% of that is 11.475 inches. At my stitch gauge of 9 stitches per inch, that's 103.275 stitches. At the end of my heel turn, there'll be the 36 stitches of my instep, because it's a 72 stitch sock. There'll be 36 stitches of the instep and 21 stitches after the heel turn, which is just the number that Summerlee's heel turns end with when you do the 72 stitch sock usually. And so that 103 number minus the instep and the stitches left after the heel turn leaves me with 46.275 stitches that I would need to have the stitches around my heel diagonal divided by 2 for each side, and I would have 23 stitches to pick up along the sides, assuming that I pick up 1 kind of extra to close the holes. That means that the heel flap should have 22 slip stitches along it, which would make it 44 rows. I'm also really loving this color palette, but I did end up using 6 grams of the 10 gram mini skein for this cuff. It's denser and thicker than I would expect, especially considering that it's actually more length by weight than this, but it's so much thicker than it. Like, no, the focus is not going to happen. But regardless, these cables were a bit of a yarn eater, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another contrast color. I've got like a pink color that I think will work pretty well, and I'm going to do the toe in that, and then I'm going to do for the other sock the pink for the cuff and the leftover, the last like 3 to 4 grams of this for the toe. So they're kind of like, as I've said in other videos, maybe in this video before, it's like a little coordinating mismatch. I really like how the cables ended up coming out, but I think if I were to do it again, I would decrease the distance between the cables and also the height of the cables. So these are like, each zig and zag is 4 rows. I think I would decrease it to 3 rows so they're like tighter and closer, so you can get a little more zigs and zags before you run out of space in the cuff. So yeah, that's the update. I would love to say that I'm not going to work on this anymore until I finish my Christmas gifts, but I probably am. I finished the first sock. I also remembered the word however many clips ago, weeks ago for me, when I was saying I wanted it to be like cool or fun. The words I was looking for were funky and punchy. What do you think? Do you think that I've achieved funky and punchy? These fit really well. They definitely fit better than the starting one, but I do worry that maybe I overshot the length a little bit of the heel flap. It ended up about 3 inches, and it's like falls down my foot just a tiny bit because it feels like the back of the ankle is maybe a little bit too long. But I do think that there's a chance that that's either a heel turn depth issue, a heel turn width issue, or potentially a like this whole area just overall being a little bit too big issue. And so I think the potential next fixes would be trying to decrease up here instead of decreasing along the gusset decreases. I also feel like the gusset ended up really long in this because I was decreasing from 72 stitches down to 64 stitches along with all my 46 picked up stitches from the heel flap. So it ended up being a really long gusset, which is fine unless I want to do something with a textured pattern along the foot, like Summerlee's Comfort Core socks where the arch panel is done in a different texture. I wouldn't be able to do that here because the gusset decreases go all the way to my arch. So decreasing to the foot size before the heel instead of after could help with that, and also maybe could end up helping with the fit of the heel overall. And so I do think I'm going to use decreasing before the heel instead of after as my second experiment, like I kind of originally intended. But in the part of scientific papers where they talk about potential areas for further study, for me, for right now, after just one sock, obviously we still need to finish the second, wash and block, wear them around to get a true sense. But as of right now, the next thing that I would want to look into would be trying a different heel turn shape. Both the half handkerchief and the square heel are a little narrower and deeper, and not a lot, but maybe by enough to make a difference. And then also, I would want to try maybe a more moderate heel flap length. I think my previous heel flaps were close to 2 inches, and this one does hit on my outer ankle exactly at my ankle bone, which is where Roxanne Richardson mentions it should hit, but it just feels very long, and I wonder if maybe a 2.5 inch, which is the measurement from my heel to the intersection of my foot and my ankle, would be 2.5 inches, and I wonder if that might prevent some of the ankle bunching. I think if I did that experiment, I would get pretty unscientific with it, and I would just combine those two. I would choose another heel type, and I would decrease the heel flap. The more that I talk, the more that I think that maybe I should do that one next. I feel like it would be nice to like fully get the heel flap length settled before I move on to the next variable. The other conclusion that I'm starting to come to after having done this cuff and this toe and this cuff in the accent colors is that I think that Wool to Die For sent me the wrong size yarn, because when I just done this cuff, I was like, okay, well maybe it's like a thicker fingering weight, and maybe this type of cuff just like really eats at the yarn, because like cables are pretty dense and take up a lot of yarn. But then I did the toe, and the toe also took up a lot more yarn than I'd expected. And as I was rolling up the ball of yarn for this cuff, I happened to see it sitting next to some Peyton's Croy scraps, and I realized that this, when just like loose, is about the same thickness as Peyton's Croy, and when pulled taut, it's actually thicker than Peyton's Croy. And Peyton's Croy is a notoriously thick sock yarn with much lower yards per 100 grams than this yarn that I ordered allegedly has. And so after all of these things just like not adding up, I decided to test the wraps per inch, and I measured the wraps per inch of this at 17 wraps per inch when it's supposed to be 24 wraps per inch. And so I did some more digging, and the yarn that I bought was the Wool to Die For Platinum Sock in the 10 gram micro skeins. And upon doing a little more research, Wool to Die For also has in 10 gram micro skeins their Platinum DK yarn, which according to the website has 18 wraps per inch. So a lot more consistent with the measurement that I got for this, though really more of a sport weight than a DK. And I went back and I checked my order, and I definitely ordered the Platinum Sock. So I just reordered some more, and so when it comes, I will be able to confirm if they just have very thick sock yarn. But I think that like a lot of indie dyers use Wool to Die For, and so I think that if Wool to Die For's sock yarn, like standard sock yarn, was particularly thick, I would have heard about it. But I'll be able to compare in a couple of weeks when the new yarn comes. And until then, I'm going to operate on the assumption that this is actually the DK weight that's more of a sport weight, which is not ideal in terms of how far the yarn goes, because you can only really get a cuff or a toe out of the 10 grams. But I do think that it helps the sock stay up having the thicker yarn for the cuff. So a win there. And in addition to what I've already said multiple times, loving a coordinated mismatch, I do think that scarcity breeds invention. And I kind of like the different colors of everything so far. I do have enough that I could do another toe in the pink. I haven't decided yet if I want to do both toes in the pink or if I want to choose a different color for this toe. I'll make that decision when I get there. I also think that the contrast between these looks a lot better in natural lighting. In my yellow lighting, they look like they're trying to match, but they don't. But in natural lighting, it's much more clear that this is a red and this is an orange. I finished these on Friday when I was at my friend's house watching the Eras Tour docuseries, so I blocked them yesterday and they're ready to go today. I didn't really realize why this color was called Nostalgia until I was knitting with it, and especially with these like bright colors, it's very elementary school in the best way possible. My thoughts on the fit after making both are the same as after making the first. I think the heel flap is potentially too long and maybe the ankle is too long. I also confirmed I got the new Platinum Sock yarn and compared it to what I use for these cuffs, and this is definitely thicker. I don't think I'll be able to show you on the camera, so I'll insert a picture like here of the difference in thickness, but I think that might actually work in our favor in making them stay up. So I'm excited to wear them today and see how they fare. Okay, time to get a little conclusion going. I wore these socks for 2 days, or whatever you think the appropriate amount of time to wear a pair of knit socks is. I do think that these are the best fit of any knit socks I've made yet. Better even than my little afterthought heel ones that were my previous favorite. But they're still not a perfect fit. I'm gonna insert a picture right here. But basically they end up slipping down a little bit, and unlike the original pair which slipped all the way down and then like fell off in my shoe, these ones have a final resting place, it feels like whether in shoes, out of shoes, walking around, chilling in bed, they slip to the exact same spot, which, as you can see here, I think gives us a really good hint as to where to bring this experiment next. Luckily for me, it's the same place that I was planning to bring the experiment. It seems to me like the heel flap, the top of it, wants to fall down and sit exactly at the back of my heel where my foot and ankle intersect. And I did some measuring and I determined that this heel flap is just under 3 inches long and the original heel flap is just under 2 inches long. So there's a lot of in between in there. And as I said earlier in this video, the distance from the bottom of my foot to that heel ankle intersection is about 2.5 inches. So I really want to try that. And as I also said previously, combining that with a square heel turn. And so we're moving in the right direction. We have a pair of socks that fits better than any other pair has fit yet. And we have next steps. So I'll see you there. Bye. Hi, I'm Adri. Nope, none of that. Next up is Cascade Heritage. Nope. I'm fine with using these as an accent color. Again, I'm losing the plot, guys. The more that I talk, the more